Probably will, so we'll see. Here we go. Standing outside the door of love and mercy, you wonder if there's a place there for you. You know there's peace inside, but still you're searching for someone who understands the pain you've been through. Well, the door's unlocked, the lights are on. What are you waiting for? Come on in and welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in. You'll find the place of rest in the arms of spirit. God's waited so long for your homecoming day. God knows the peace you seek and the hurt you're feeling. Spirit wants to hold you and to wipe the tears away, while the Father waits with open arms. And God is calling out your name. Come on in and welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in. Well, there's room enough in the house of love for someone just like you. Come on in and welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, just come on in and welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, come on in. Hey, yeah, yeah. Come on in and welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, just come on in and welcome home. You are loved, you belong here now. No matter where you've been, just come on in.
My name is Louise Morley, and I'm a member here of this congregation, this wonderful group of people. James, do you happen to know where our ministers are today?
I do.
You do? Where are they?
It's my understanding that our ministers are in Colorado at Reverend Lawrence's, his former church.
Isn't that wonderful? And they're leaving there after visiting friends, and they're going on to the annual ministers convention in Kansas City for the Unity Group. Yes, that's what they're doing. James is going to help me because between the two of us, I know we can accomplish all of our tasks this morning.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So James, would you please introduce this talented group of people?
Good morning. So good to see all of you. Yes, we have Mr. John Rose at the piano this morning. We have the one and only Mr. Pedro Barroas at the drum set. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Peter Wallace at the organ and his lovely and talented wife, Miss Samantha Natalie.
You know, someplace in our audience is Pedro's wife, and I wanted to say hello to her too.
Pedro's wife is here too.
Yes,
she's in the back.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We welcome each and every one of you. Welcome not only in-house, but those people that are watching through the internet. We say hello, happy Sunday, as we wave to you. Do we have anyone here for the very first time this morning? I'm going to get that out of the way because I usually forget that.
Welcome.
Peggy brought some friends with her, and I asked if she made them work like she makes us work. But they assured me no. You know, even though Reverend Lawrence and Bev are not with us this morning, they have left us in the most capable hands. I will introduce formally Reverend Ernest a little bit later, but please, won't you welcome him and his lovely bride-to-be, Mary Catherine. To be married next Saturday, and we send all good wishes your way for wonderful, wonderful continued happiness. They met over 20 years ago, so I said to Reverend Lawrence, it's about time, don't you think? But there were some things that happened, you know, life in between. We have a theme in June that I find very exciting. As a matter of fact, the exciting spiritual community where people dream and imagine. And you know, I think that's us. Do you think we fit that description? I mean, we are all here to do just that, to learn, to grow, and to experience each other as we walk at this wonderful path of life. We also have a vision statement. I invite you to say it with me. Centered in God, we create an ever-expanding spiritual community of one. And we also have a mission statement. Together we say, we are a spiritual beacon of inspiration, abundance, and enlightenment. Now, last Sunday, Reverend Lawrence said to our youth group that they should take this week and make it a celebration day of something that they really wanted to do, like celebration, National Day of two different shoes or whatever. James, what did you do this week?
This week was the National Week of the Upright Bass.
The upright bass.
Because I think I played the upright bass like 5 nights this past week, so.
Oh, all right. Peter, what was yours? Uh-oh. You didn't do your assignment, I can tell. Demerit, demerit, demerit. I'm proud to say that I accomplished mine because this was National Ice Cream Week. Every day. Every day. Now, I will tell you also, it was a disciplinary thing on my part because I made the pint last all week long. Because I've been known to eat it all in one sitting. You know that, right? You know that. All right. Shall we begin with prayer? Dear Holy Spirit, we invite you into the room and into our hearts. We ask that you clear our minds so that we may experience and enjoy the words of encouragement and love and prosperity and health and generosity and blessings that are ours today. We know that we're all here by divine appointment, so we are here to hear the words that will speak to us, a message just for us. And for this, we say thank you, God, and amen. Won't you please stand as together we sing?
We really like this song. We consider it a unity standard from the Agave Choir out there in Los Angeles. It's a waltz, so keep that in mind. Let's all sing.
Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth or the stars or all of creation. God is creator, all in all, leading us to shine its light as me, as you so use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Come
Thank you. Someday I'm going to learn to dance. It's on my bucket list. Well, now, we've welcomed our new people. We have a brochure in the back of the chairs where you can please identify yourself so that we may keep in contact with you via the computer. We have, no, it's Unity, Pompano, what is it, James?
It's unitypompanobeach.org.
.org, that's it. And you can communicate with us anytime, any place that you are, that you happen to have the internet service. Catherine is the one who, I think, keeps us up to date and has all of the information, and she's such a blessing, and she's sitting back there monitoring this morning, and we can't even thank you enough for all you do around here.
Thank you, Kathleen.
She's awesome.
She's awesome.
She's awesome. Now, I'm very sorry that I don't have, I'm not sorry, I'm sad. I'm sad that I don't have the brochure that talks about Reverend Ernest's workshop this afternoon. It's a colored brochure that must be someplace in the house. Nancy's gone to look for it for me. And this afternoon, he's going to be conducting this workshop from 1 until 3. We're going to have lunch prior to that for those of you that will be attending. And for those of you that are staying, please, if you're having lunch, it's all of $5. That's quite a deal. I don't know where you can go for $5. But if you'll go through this door right here into the fellowship hall, that way we will be able to accommodate you because that's where the food is set up. So here it is, possibility dreaming, eliminating the 5 deadliest blocks. Thank you so much. To fulfillment and abundance. This is going to be an awesome workshop, and you'll hear a little bit more about Reverend Ernest in just a little bit. But thank you for bringing up that, Nancy. That was very kind of you. I should have been prepared, but there you go. We're also going to continue with the slides here, our Power Hour. I always chide that Cynthia's never going to get through this book. I think they must do 1 paragraph a week or something. Because this is, how long has this been going on, children? How long, Cynthia? Since January 1. Well, this is only June. I mean, come on, what do you want? Anyhow, this group of people, they get so into it, and there's such a discussion. And of course, she's such an accomplished person when it comes to showing us through the path of life. There you go. She's awesome. Yeah. She's good, and she shares her talents. I think it's once a month with another smaller Unity group down in Miami. And the next one, improv. Mary Curtis is just a fun person to be around, and she helps us to let go of that inner child so we can learn to laugh and grow together and explore some techniques that we can use in transforming our relationships, not only one with another, but with all those that are around us. And the next slide tells us about create the summer solstice, celebrate it. This is a drumming service that happens, it will happen on Monday, June the 20th, 7 to 8. It's a drumming circle, but you don't have to have a drum. You can bring chopsticks, I don't know, anything. Just
spoons.
Bring yourself.
Bring your spoons.
There you go. It's going to be at the east end of Atlantic Boulevard. On the north side, the parking is $1.25 an hour. And if it's raining, they meet in the fellowship hall. So there you go. But it's fun, right? It's a lot of fun. All right, thank you. Prayer meditation circle on the 22nd. On the 4th Wednesday of every month from 7 to 8 in the chapel over near Fellowship Hall, there's prayer. But know that prayer is not confined to just one event a month. It's something that we do religiously here with our prayer slips that you will find in the back of the chairs, with the prayer chaplains that surround the outreach of the building after our service, to service before you can go into fellowship, the small chapel over there in Fellowship Hall. Someone will be there to pray with you, we uphold your words in prayer. For those of you that write on the prayer slips, they are then collected. Our prayer chaplains pray with them for a period of 30 days. Then they're sent to Unity Village, where they're continued to be prayed over. So know that there's a lot of prayer work that goes on in our community. And, oh, the bookstore. The bookstore is very profitable because we have a new book each month to ponder, and this is Baker Towers. John is the one who facilitates this for us. It will be July 6th. It's on the first Wednesday of every month. And the books that have been selected, interesting because it's a different theme, and yet there's so much to be learned from each and every one. This is a very interesting book. I'm reading it now. So I highly recommend that for you. What else have we got going on here? That's it? I'm done? Okay, good. You mean we can meet and greet? Yes? All right. Everyone, won't you please stand and greet each other as we sing. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here.
Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Right now, we need your presence near. Shower down your grace, Lord, revive us again. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. The house is ready, every heart is prepared. Sit at the welcome table and be blessed. This celebration is in your honor. You're invited to remain. We've got a standing invitation to inhabit your praise. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here right now. Right now, we need your presence near. Shower down your grace, oh, revive us again. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Our souls are hungry and our spirits are dry. We need food and water from on high. So when you shower down bread from heaven, feed us till we need no more. Lord, we're depending on you, no other help we need. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here right now. Right now, we need your presence near. Shower down your grace, oh, revive us again. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. We cannot move without your power, Lord, no. Descend on us this very hour, oh. Breathe on us now, break up the fallow ground. You know that only you can move your people again. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here right now. Right now, we need your presence near. Shower down your grace, oh, revive us again. Holy Spirit, you are welcome. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here right now. Right now, we need your presence near. Ooh, shower down your grace, oh, revive us again. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here.
Just want to remind you there is fellowship time next door after the service.
So sit down.
I'm going to do the formal introduction for Reverend Ernest, and then I'm going to be reading the daily word. The prayer chest will come forward. Reverend Ernest is going to do our meditation for us, and then we'll proceed with our normal service. The bio that has been provided tells us about the accomplishments of the man. And so I'm going to share those with you. He's been an ordained minister with the Centers of Spiritual Living more than 16 years. And he's the founder of the Spiritual Currency Institute, which is an outreach ministry, and it's focusing on spirituality in the workplace, spiritual entrepreneurship, and healing, abundance, and prosperity. He served as an assistant minister and then member of the board for the Center of Spiritual Living in Fort Lauderdale, and he did that for more than 14 years. He's the author of the best-selling book, Soul Currency, which is investing your inner wealth in fulfillment and abundance. It's been translated into 7 major languages. He's also written many articles, columns, over 100, that have appeared in major magazines and have been published, including the Wall Street Journal, Institutional Investor Magazine, The Guide to Venture Capital, and prior to becoming a minister, he spent about 15 years or so as an investment banker, venture capitalist, and a member of the New York Stock Exchange, and more than 30 years as a serial entrepreneur, founder and chairman of 9 successful startups, of which 5 went public or were existing public companies. He's been a guest on Oprah Winfrey show in 2010, and he was asked to speak about his good friend, John of God, who is a Brazilian healer who has helped more than 14 million people over the past 55 years. He's also been a frequent guest at Unity in Fort Myers, a faculty member of the Omega Institute, and a guest on more than 100 radio and television shows in the past 7 years. He was born in New York. He now lives in Deerfield Beach, and you know he's taking his bride next Saturday. Now, all that being said, and I ask permission, you see, we can read all about each other and get a picture, but I think when we hear the spoken word or read their word, it gives you a different insight. So I'm going to read this. It comes from his introduction in his book, Soul Currency. You and I don't know each other, and yet I believe you're a good-hearted, hard-working person. I'd like to think that if we met, we would be friends. I cannot presume to know or understand the past or current circumstances of your life. You may be old or young, male, female, rich or poor, married or single, nor do I know the nature of your sweetest dreams. You could be an inventor, a real estate person, an actor, a lawyer. However, I invite you to sit with me as you read this book and open your mind to receive ideas, create your passion, and expand the richness of your life. That's the words of a measured man. Our daily word, divine order. Love leads the way to divine order. In a war-torn biblical times, Naomi and her daughters-in-law, Ruth and Oprah, lost their husbands. Ruth, in a courageous act of devotion to Naomi, pledged her commitment to stay with Naomi, return to her homeland, and adopt her people and God. Like Ruth, I follow my heart and do the next right thing. Despite any outer circumstances to the contrary, divine order prevails in life. I devote myself to what serves the greatest good. The order is reestablished even out of chaos when I follow my heart. In Hebrew, Ruth's name means love, and love is always at the helm of order. I follow my heart in all circumstances and let love lead the way. in Ruth 1, verse 16. Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. For wherever you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. And your people shall be my people, and your God, my God.
As the prayer chest comes forward, we'd now like to begin a time of prayer and meditation by singing together, "Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place."
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel this mighty power and this grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel this mighty power and this grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
After 4 minutes. Good morning, everyone. Continuing into this presence, let's close our eyes and go in. And as we go inside, we open our hearts, we let go of any of the busyness of this day, and center ourselves within our heart so that we begin to open ourselves to that presence of love that is flowing through us, that is the essence of us. And so now, relax. Clear your mind of any obstacles that might be there, knowing that you are already in a place where there are no obstacles. And so as you begin to go into this place, imagine in your mind a solitary candle in the dark that has been lit, and that you are holding it. And as you put it down, it begins to flicker brighter and brighter. As you begin to think and feel that presence that is within you, allow that presence now to be transferred to the candle, and let that candle grow larger and larger in its light. And as this light begins to shine and immerse the entire area around you, lighting it up, recognize that it is the power of Spirit within you, in all of us, that flows unimpeded in all of existence. And now that power is part of that expression of light all around you. Feel as that light begins to move in every part of you, not only through your body, but through the soul of who you are. For as the body begins to fade away, there is only that presence of the soul that is there, that continues as that wonderful light. And we allow ourselves now to be immersed in that light, knowing that it is part of who we are. It is a part of all life. It is a part of that loving presence that expresses in each way, in each of us. Immerse yourself now in that light as it begins to move, and allow ourselves now to take this light and bring it down within us, knowing that at any time, in any place, that light, that love, that energy is always there, even in the darkest times. And so we begin to come back to this room. And now let us feel this light as we sit together in silence. And so now, as we begin to come back to this room, we give great thanks for this moment. And so it is.
As we close this time of prayer and meditation, let's sing together, Alleluia.
Alleluia.
to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, and to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for that heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest, and the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable, the unreachable, the unreachable side.
That's Samantha Natalie.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to give a formal thanks to Reverend Lawrence and I call her Reverend Bev, because she really is. And I knew her from actually Fort Lauderdale Unity, and so I was over there, and she was the platform assistant and was great. And when she came up here, I had been to this building a few times, and every time that I had been there, this was going back before even it sort of went into kind of a vacancy. It would just seem to be getting, the energy kept getting lower and lower, and now I come here and it's like not even the same place. It's just amazing what the energy is, and I want to thank Kathleen. Where's Kathleen? Where are you? Okay. Well, I don't need Suri because I got Kathleen. And really, Louise was so great. I mean, you'd think she was auditioning for the Tonight Show. I mean, it was very good. She's even getting the band to do it, so like Ed McMahon. Anyway, I am so happy to be here because, one, it's not only 10 minutes from my house, but I don't have to be on an airplane, but this has always been really, it has a feeling of home to it. It's a very cozy place, and the energy is just, it's just amazing. So I wanted to add something to the song, this wonderful song from Man of La Mancha about the impossible dream. It always gets people cheered up, and it really gets you a sense of, well, I now I can undertake it. But I heard Muhammad Ali say something once, and I looked it up after he passed away, and he talked about the word impossible. Now, some of you may have already heard this, but I'm amazed at this. This is such an amazing quote. He said, "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world that they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it." You can imagine this guy up there now saying how beautiful he is and everything, and he's now telling people that it's really about small men who are not willing to change the world. And he says, impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. It's a dare. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. So, if we look at this in consciousness, we're really looking about being able to use what has been God-given, which we call our imagination. And sometimes when children are very small and they seem to be talking to one of their invisible playmates, or they can take a box and it becomes a castle, as grown-ups, sometimes we are very tolerant of that and we encourage it. But a lot of times we kind of laugh at the fact that when we give a child a present who might be 1 or 2 years old, that they're actually more thrilled about the box it came in than the toy. And there's a certain wondrousness to imagination and dreaming. But often that imagination and dreaming goes away. People have to do it in silence. They have to do it in their room. They have to write about things. And sometimes if they have a lot of encouragement, they go on and they start to do it. So there was this one incident where there was a young man who was basically, he started to be an engineer, but he was actually more interested in puppets. And he would spend his time kind of playing with puppets and talking to them and going to see puppet shows occasionally. And he'd watch Howdy Doody and so forth. And he'd be interested also in how they got the legs to move and the arms and how it sounded so real. But then he thought, well, it really isn't that real, but so be it. And he started to think there might be some better ways to do it. And meantime, his parents are saying, well, what are you going to do when you grow up? We're going to put you through college and you're going to get this degree, right? And you're going to go work at the naval station just like your dad is doing. And I guess he didn't say very much except after he graduated from Southern Mississippi. He basically decided he wanted to do something else. So there was this day he comes home and he says, listen, I'm not going to be an engineer right now. I'm not going to go over to the naval station, and even though there's a job most likely waiting for me. I want to work on puppets. Now, some of you who read my book probably know that story. And his father said, well, how are you going to make a living? How are you going to know? And this was the age, by the way, of Sherry Lewis, for those of you who remember who Sherry Lewis was, right? And she was able to take a sock and draw a little mouth on it and call it Mr. Wenthus, right? And she made a living, but of course his parents didn't really think about that. They thought that was just something that was a one-time thing. So he always thought he always was really interested in puppets, and his engineering background got him to think of some other things. So when Jim Henson decided that as he was building his business, and when he finally died at the age of, I think it was 48, something like that, his estate was worth about $350 million. But the thing was that nobody could have ever figured that you would have these puppets, that they became such icons. Now, Howdy Doody was always laughed at a little bit as time came clumping into this thing, but you know, Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog, I mean, they taught generations, including my own children, the meaning of the word pizza, and how to read, and A and B, and the Muppets were amazing. And I had a friend that of our family that worked for CBS, and he actually then was made the president of the Children's Television Workshop. And he told me that often he would come to work, and they would have these sort of workshops where they worked on these things, and they would have these meetings of everybody. And what they would do is he would hear laughter coming out of all of these workshops, and he thought, wow, I never thought that going to work would be so much fun, and there were all these people practicing scripts and things that worked, and even things that didn't work. They all laughed at it, and what a fun place it was to go to work. And so there's a man that really used his imagination, his passion, and he dreamed about doing some of these things, and all of a sudden he's doing something that's totally unique, because everybody thought they knew what a puppet was, right? The puppets have been around since the Middle Ages. But basically, he reinvented the word puppet to really become his own thing. And now, of course, there's going to be other people who will now follow in those footsteps. And so you'll probably see other types of puppets and other types of entertainment and things of that type. I have a son who is now, it's hard to believe, he's just turned 40. And basically, he never finished college. Not because he was unable to, he dropped out because of his grades, it's because he didn't have an interest in really doing the things that were offered in college. He was very interested, and this goes back maybe 4 decades. So you're looking at the fact that probably in the 1980s, you didn't really have video games. They were kind of very new. Anybody remember Pong? You know, you had that type of thing. And then Pac-Man, of course. But that was a major advance, right? Well, he decided he loved video games, not so much to play them, but of course when he was 11 years old and wanted to have more time playing video games, we didn't know. We just thought he was really being clever and decided he was going to, he really wanted more time playing video games. So we thought he was basically, he wanted to find out how they were made. And he was very interested in it. And he never shared it with too many people. He was always in his room and he was writing in his little journal in very small letters. And I didn't really know exactly what was going on until one day he brought back a book, which I had some familiarity with, because that book is also being used to train religious science ministers at that time. And so what happened was that I discovered the book was called, anybody ever hear of it? Called In Search of Schrodinger's Cat. Now it's a book, it's not a book about pets, it's not a book of a children's book, it's actually a book about quantum physics. And here he was reading this quantum physics book. I had 2 sons. One was about 22 months younger, and they were quite different. So while my younger son went and got his hair waved and colored, my older son began reading all these books. And he kept reading them, and when he was in high school, they didn't have any of the classes. So he sat there with his friends, and they probably could have taught the class, but they weren't mature enough to really do that. So they were always talking in the back and laughing, and that was a shame. But he did go to college, and he managed to get in. And basically it was it was a good college out in California, and Cal Poly. Well, in his junior year, I didn't hear very much from him. And then I heard that he decided he wasn't going to continue, and he was going to go out and join and basically do video games. And I didn't know too much about that other than there are a few people like Activision that made video games. I didn't play a lot of them, but some of them looked pretty interesting. And pretty soon, he was put on a couple of the larger games. He managed to hook up with a small company. And he was working on things like Shrek. And then he started, he left there. He left the Disney Studios and went to, I think, Activision. So now he's working on something. And I said, well, what is he doing? And he said, well, I'm working on a thing they call Call of Duty. And it became the all-time best-selling game ever, that whole series. And whenever I would mention that he's working on that, and somebody who had a child that might be at that point 10 or 11, everybody would get excited. Oh, what's his name? You know, what is he doing? Because you see, when I was growing up, basically firemen and cowboys and people like that were the people that we strived to be. And then it was astronauts and other things of that type. Well, now it's, at that age, now it's video game producers and video game, and he actually, I knew I had made the right decision years ago by just letting him do what his passion was and faith. And in 2006, he won the Oscar for the best sound in a video game. And of course, I didn't really know that much about in fact, I didn't even know there was an academy for video games. But that academy is actually bigger. The market is bigger for video games than both movies and music put together. Now you think about that. And actually, if you look at the way things happen today, people that have a better way to have an app that will get you basically a cheap, going to a store, right? And then you'll figure out, going to this app, you'll figure out where you can buy it cheaper, or if that's the cheaper price. Well, I see you nod because you might have been familiar with it. Well, that young man made $53 million after about 4 or 5 years. And he was only, I think, 22. So what I'm saying is that this isn't about money. This is about really following something where you have passion, where you really are drawn to it with all your heart and soul. Now, what does this mean in terms of somebody that's going through a regular life and has had a career and has to decide, well, gee, I really don't have enough to retire, or I'm not really happy with what I'm doing. I'd like to sort of do something else. Well, there are a lot of ways you can do these things and be able to set your intention and follow your dream. But you see, most of us don't realize that setting your intention is a little bit like cooking. And by that I mean, if you have the recipe for, say, something very delicious that's a gourmet meal, all of a sudden, you might sprinkle in something that doesn't taste very good, but you don't know that. But at that point, you're sprinkling in, for instance, you have the greatest intention, you're putting effort in it, but guess what? There's a lot of fear, and that fear is being sprinkled in there. You might have other ways to ruin the recipe, like overcooking it or leaving it on high too long. And that's similar to having perhaps not feeling good enough. Now, I'm not going to go into all the things that people do and how to really begin to deal with those. We'll do that in the workshop this afternoon. But really what happens is that most people, they have dreams. They're not following an impossible dream, but they're making it impossible at times for them to have that dream come true. Because to have a dream come true, you have to come true first. And so the thing is that as you begin to move toward the idea of doing something that you've always wanted to do, or doing something that's come to you for years, and it's come as a perhaps almost a piece of intuition. You don't have to necessarily go out and become the entrepreneur that some of the kids have become. There are other ways you can do it. And the other thing is that you can write about it. You see, the whole idea is that everybody's got this idea that you have to do it one way. And that's the tendency, unfortunately, as we go through life. What makes things impossible for our dreams sometimes to come true is that we believe there is only one way to do it, or there's a couple of different ways. And you see, the experts, I love these experts because you have, one perfect example is all the political experts that, on the Republican side of things. They were all experts. He's not going to make it. He's just doing it for the fun of it. He's going to drop out of a couple of weeks, you know, and then it became a couple of months, and then it became like nobody's going to take him seriously. And then you've got 17 other people or 16 other people involved in there. So the odds are very little. But at the same time, you see, experts aren't exactly, they're people who will tell you what the world is today, not what it could be. And you see, the thing is that, I'll give you a perfect example, right? The experts built the Titanic. Guess what? The amateurs, like Noah, built the ark. So now which one actually managed to stay afloat? So it's a perfect example of every time you do something in your life, you have to ask yourself, am I doing this because I'm so used to it, because everybody's told me that this is what it is? Is there something that's really meaningful that you do? Sometimes taking even a few minutes to praise yourself. Does anybody ever drive somewhere and they haven't been there, but they get there and they're just sitting there? Do you ever pat yourself on the back and say, good job? Well, right? You ever say that? How many people do that? Oh, one person, okay. Two people. All right. Well, you know, the whole idea is that, you know, we're much harder on ourselves than on anything else. So the question is, you know, if you really started to pat yourself on the back every time you do something well, you first might be thinking, oh, that's silly. I mean, why would I want to do that? But yet, if it was somebody else that you really loved or you liked, and they were doing something, they got you there, and you said, pretty good job. You got here, you didn't even run into too many red lights, and you didn't have to make too many U-turns, things of that type, right? And you said, that's a real good job, you know? And if it were a guy, it's like, hey, maybe you stopped and asked for directions. So, but the idea is you have to be able to give yourself a sense that you can see yourself the way you really are. And that's not about ego. It's about understanding that divine being that's within each of us and really knowing exactly all the aspects. We don't come with a user's manual. So in a way, part of the user's manual is to recognize when something's been done well and what you're doing. And then when you have some difficulties, really saying, well, what am I here for? Why am I doing this? It's the user's manual that's going to tell you. After you start the idea of patting yourself on the back and saying, hey, I'm pretty good. I'm doing this pretty well. Not bad. You know, and then you just say, wow, you did a great job. You know what? Your body is hearing that. Your mind is hearing that. Just in the same way that it hears when you say, geez, I'm a klutz. Who in the heck would do something that's stupid, or what an idiot I was, or what a jerk, or what. You have all kinds of ways that you can tell yourself that, and you don't even have to say it out loud. You can just think it. And it does that damage. So the question really becomes, are you able to really dream? And dreaming becomes imagination, because imagination is so unique to you. Now, I have an exercise that I do, which we're not going to do today because it takes too long, but we're going to do it in the workshop, and that is what happens. What happens and how much would you sell your imagination for? And this is really a useful exercise, because if you had to sell your imagination for whatever reason it had to happen, for instance, you had to raise money for somebody that was going to die or needed medical expenses or whatever. So you tell yourself, whatever that story is, if you had to sell your imagination, which means you can't use it, you hadn't even thought about earlier, you hadn't even thought about how useful it was, and you might not have even attached a whole lot of value to it. But now, as you sort of angst about selling your imagination and not being able to use it, you all of a sudden, first thing you say is, I don't want to do that. But supposing you had to, you entered into a contract to sell it. So what would it run? What would you charge for it? So that's an interesting question, because you see, we don't even begin to value what we have. And if you're like some of the people that have taken this exercise and said, well, I'm going to be part of the exercise is you're not allowed to use words that you can't count the number of zeros in back. So you can't have a zillion or a quadzillion or something that is just non-meaningful to people. So as you begin to understand that, you begin to realize, hey, I have other things. I have things that I can judge. I have a sense of being able to, I have intuition. I've got a lot of other things. I've got love. What are all those things worth? And so I would just say one thing when I leave. About 20-some odd years ago, I hooked up on a business deal with somebody that turned out not to be that somebody. It turned out that she had a separate Social Security number and whatever. And literally, our company, which we had started together, all of a sudden couldn't raise any money because obviously people felt like they were getting had. And all of a sudden, everything collapsed. I found myself $1 million in debt. Now, I could have said, hey, I didn't cause it. I didn't do it, but I didn't, because many of these people were friends of mine, people that trusted me, that I basically said, this is what's going on, and they knew. So I basically decided I'm going to take responsibility for it. These are my friends. So here I was. I'd never experienced not being able to pay my bills, and here I had $1 million that there was no way I could even do that. Now, I was on Wall Street. I had a lot of, I've handled big money. But, to be able to pay off $1 million, give you an example, if you had to pay $1 million off and you had interest, and you were paying, say you made a salary of, say, $150,000 a year or something like that, or $100,000 a year, and you used half of it to pay down the debt. You know how much, when you'd be able to tell you were even making a dent in the debt? In about 200 years. So you don't basically go out and get a job and start paying it off. You have to create it off, just like we have to do with the national debt. You have to be creative, and that's what happens, is that when you are trying to dream, when you are dreaming, when you are imagining what it's going to be like, you also have to imagine that as you begin to get more into it, that you are allowing that creative force to set itself into work. How much time do we have here? Got about 5 more minutes? Good. So I was able to, I had no idea, and this is how I discovered it. I was able to find a way using what tools I had. I began to realize after I found my way to a religious science church and started doing work on myself and began to understand that I was the source, not somebody else, that I should use what I had. And that's what I say with each person is, you know, you bloom where you're planted. You have special gifts and special things. Don't try to be like somebody else, because everybody's got their own way to do it, and there is no one way to do things. So I ended up basically moving into a small place because I couldn't afford my house. It was sold off, fortunately, back to the bank. But it brought me a way of understanding that what I had, my possessions, I realized at that time that they owned me, not that I owned them. And that was one of the most freeing things that I ever had, was not being able to pay my bills, not being able to have any possessions, not being able to, but in a way, I didn't say I had nothing, because there's a tendency to say, I don't have anything. I realized that what this was a liquidity crisis. It was the fact that I had a lot of assets, just like somebody might have a big house or lots of land, and yet they weren't very liquid, and they were having maybe trouble paying their taxes. And so then I thought, that sounds a lot better than saying I've got nothing. Then I'd have to start all over again, and at that point, it sounded like a big task. So it was really finding something that would made me liquid. So then I got on the phone and I started calling people that I used to know. And one person that remembered me was where I had worked before, had the best time, and got paid well. And so the first thing I did was call them. And so when I called them, they said, come on in, we'll talk. And so I figured, and I started to tell them what I could do for them and whatever. And he looked at me, and I knew that he knew that I was basically trying to recover from something. But he said, nonetheless, we have something in Florida that we need to look at. So I said, well, I'm interested. What is it? And he said, well, we don't really know, so we're going to have you go down and spend a day or two and check it out. So we did. I did. And essentially, that was the beginning of my recovery. The thing that I checked out was a small startup company that was basically in the technology area. I came back and reported that based on what I used to see and what I knew, that this was something they ought to be interested in, get funded. So he said, well, you're the only one that knows about this company. What's it going to take for you to stay on? So all of a sudden now I had a job. And essentially, one thing led to another, and then the company decided it was going to go public. So the company went public. And this is all in the space of about a year. And as I was going through there, I thought, I need to get some, everybody makes millions except me. I need to really look at myself, and just because I'm getting a job and I can now make a little bit of a dent in my current obligations, I'm not going to be able to pay off everything unless there's something a lot bigger than that. So I said, I'd like to get some stock options. And it took me a while because I was having some issues about receiving. You know, one of the things that people don't realize is everybody talks about giving. You know, I'm so giving, and everybody says, boy, that's great, let's clap. But you know what? On the other side of it is, they're talking about receiving. They're not talking about receiving. They're talking about giving, because it's not socially acceptable to talk about receiving. You know? I mean, even Donald Trump doesn't talk that much about receiving. He talks a lot about himself, but it's really... But really, it's about receiving. So I'll tell you, you basically look at some of these people who are, I'm not talking about the people that run foundations. I'm talking about the people that are basically going through normal channels of their life. And they'll be talking about giving. And we give and give and give. And those are the people that eventually run out, have issues, almost like a roller coaster, where they run out of things to give, and then they stop giving and get back to being liquid again, and then talk about giving, and then it goes down, and then they go back up again. So this whole thing is really what I went through. So I understood how to do it. And really, what ended up happening was the company did go public. I ended up with stock that I got, I think it was a situation where I had originally gotten like 6,000 or 7,000 shares, and I figured, well, if it comes out at 5, you know, I got a little bit to work with, I can now find something else. And then they called me up and said, we need to, in order to get this deal out the way, at the price they wanted it, we have to forward split the stock 16.5 times for every 1 share you have. Is that okay? And I said, yeah, go. And essentially that was the thing where I actually used that creative force that was there, that I kept dreaming about, that I kept my intention pure. See, that's the important thing. Keep the intention pure. You don't have to know the how. It doesn't mean you don't try. It means you don't know the way how, but that's okay. The how's going to show up. And that's how I ended up paying $1 million off in 18 months without ever declaring bankruptcy. Well, that actually is a lot easier to do, but I didn't know that. All I knew was what I knew, and I had to go through that dark night of the soul as we begin to know about these things. So now, as I see everybody starting to come back on, I've exceeded my allotted time. But if you'd like to really talk further or just hear more, come to the workshop this afternoon. I know it will change your life, and you'll have an opportunity to have some personal work done with you. And I'm so pleased to be here, and I really thank you all for just coming in and listening to me talk. It's wonderful to be able to just go right next door and be able to talk about some of the things that really are important to you. So please come and this afternoon, and if you can't, we have some information, and there's going to be some blessed water from John of God that will be available free for anyone that wants to have a drink of it. And I thank you all for being here and being so patient.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay, good. Oops, right.
See?
Sorry. Just.
Well, James, guess what? I got my cheerleading voice on because we're dead. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. Thank you so much, Reverend Ernest. He has books in the back for you. He's signing the books personally for you. There's a wonderful exhibit for you to participate in. Remember that we're having lunch next door, and if you're going to join the lunch group, you're going to go through that door over there, right there. You can see it in the archway there by the garden. I think I've covered everything, have I? Anybody got another suggestion for me?
It's the offering.
I got it right here in my hand. I'm not going to forget that. This is how we open the door. Thank you. This is how we open the door, turn on the lights, and enjoy the coffee. So please, when you're thinking about your tithes, would you remember Pompano Unity? As together we take our gift in our hands and we say together, with a grateful heart, I acknowledge God as source of all that is. Today I declare good for myself and all others. Good is mine. Good and more good is mine. And ever-increasing good is mine. Everywhere I go, I see this good. I feel it, I experience it, I freely give it, and it multiplies itself around me, and so it is. Thank you, God.
1, 2, 3. So look, we want to tell you this song is called An Abundance of Rain. But I know it's the rainy season, but when this song says an abundance of rain, we're not talking about rain, right? We're talking about abundance of creativity, of imagination, of your dreams. All right? The song says, open the windows of heaven, Lord, rain on me. So keep that in mind, all right? Okay? Okay? All right.
I can hear the sound. It's the sound of an abundance of rain. I can see the cloud filled with God's favor. It's heading this way. Heavenly raindrops fall on me as I worship you this day. My heart is glad to receive what's for me in the abundance of rain. Oh, I can hear the sound. It's the sound of an abundance of rain. I can see the clouds filled with God's favor. It's heading this way. Heavenly raindrops fall on me as I worship you this day. My heart is glad to receive what's for me in the abundance of rain. Lord, you can shower your goodness, sprinkle your mercy, pour out your blessing. Lord, I'm ready. Cover me, Lord, completely, till this life that I see has been changed by the abundance of rain. Oh, you can pour out your goodness, sprinkle your mercy, pour out your blessing. Lord, I'm ready. Cover me, Lord, completely, till this life that I know has been changed with the abundance of rain. With the abundance of rain. Oh, with the abundance of rain. In the abundance of rain. Sing it with me. In the abundance of rain. Oh, in the abundance of rain. Yeah. Oh, I say, open the windows of heaven, Lord. Rain on me, rain down on me. Open the windows of heaven, Lord. Rain on me, rain down on me. Open the windows of heaven, Lord. Rain on me, rain down on me. Open the windows of heaven, Lord. Rain on me, rain down on me. Open the windows of heaven, Lord. Rain on me, rain down on me. Open the windows of heaven, Lord. Rain on me, rain down on me. Heavenly raindrops fall on me as I worship you this day. My heart is glad to receive what's for me in the abundance of rain.
Do we not have the best musicians in the entire universe? Yes! Woo-ha! Our kids are here, at least. Oh, come on down.
Come on, kids.
Come on.
Shut up,
All right.
I wanna let it shine. This little light of mine, I wanna let it shine. This little light of mine, I wanna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Won't you all please stand? Know that the prayer chaplains are around the outside, waiting for you to serve you as we stand together and say the prayer for protection, and then we end with saying goodbye to Larry and God bless you. You want to say it? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is and always well.
Yay, God.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. There be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be.
God as creator,
Family, all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
One, two, two, two.
Blessings are falling like a sweet, sweet rain. Blessings are falling on me. Beauty is falling. Beauty is falling like a sweet, sweet rain. Beauty is falling on me. Oh Lord, I receive your blessing. Oh Lord, I receive your grace. Oh Lord, I will dance forevermore. Oh Lord, I receive your blessing. Oh Lord, I receive your grace. Oh Lord, I will dance forevermore. Oh Lord, I receive your blessing. Oh Lord, I receive your grace. Oh Lord, I will dance forevermore. Oh Lord, I receive your blessing. Oh Lord, I receive your grace. Oh Lord, I will dance forevermore. Forevermore. Forevermore.
Paul, my wife.